What's up, guys? Eric here. I was about to go to sleep, and then I just said, look, I need to make a video about this. So I'm going to try to put this out ASAP because it is a very controversial topic in the TFT community right now. I'd love to hear you guys' thoughts on it and just to talk to my thoughts on it as well. So if you guys haven't heard already, this screenshot came out today, and I'll just read it to you guys. With the release of Runeterra Forge, third-party sites will not be allowed to share any data around win rate of individual legends. By July 19th, 2023, third-party sites will no longer be allowed to expose win rates for specific augments at each stage. So what this saying is that if you're someone who goes on a stats website like MetaTFT or Tactics.tools, there's going to be no stats related to legends. And then based on the stream that Mortdog did today, I watched through all of his comments on this, and it also sounds like, based on what he's saying, there will be no stats related to augments whatsoever. Not only this sounds like it's just like you don't get to see what augment win rates are at like 2-1 and 3-2 and stuff like that, but from what Mortog said, it sounded like no augment stats whatsoever. So they're nuking legend stats and augment stats. This is really big. This has the potential to completely change the competitive scene in TFT and also how casual people play. And the question is this a good thing or a bad thing for TFT? So I just wanted to go through some of my thoughts on it so far. I just took some quick notes, so I'm going to talk through it. And this is sort of a response to some of the things Mortdog has said, a response to some of the things that a lot of people have said, and just, sort of my thoughts on it. So the big thing that this does is it shifts power towards people who put in a lot of time to learn different lines, different augments, and how those augments interact with comps and that kind of stuff, and shifts power away from the people who are super casual, who just want to hop in and play a game, go to a stats website, see what the best augment is in this spot, and then immediately know how to play a comp or to play an augment just by looking at the stats. Okay, so is that a good thing or a bad thing? I've been doing so much thinking about this because it is skill expression in TFT to understand or to have a lot of knowledge. It's not really even understand, it's just to have a lot of knowledge. Say, oh, okay, I know what makes this augment broken. It's when you play this specific comp with it. That kind of, you way back when you would take like preparation and play like water gun Zeri with it, like the Zeri Seraphine comp. I don't know if some people probably weren't even playing back then. Just knowing that comp is really strong with that augment is a bonus to someone who has never played that comp with that augment before. I think that's good, right? The question is, does it ever become too much where the game is too balanced in the favor of people who spend tons and tons of time? A lot of people are talking about this from the perspective of like more casual challengers. I'm almost like a more casual challenger because I have a real job outside of TFT. I can't devote 16 hours a day to playing the game. So it's going to be very hard for me to catch up to someone like Setsuko, like Dish Soap, who can just grind the game full time because I mean that's their job. They're dedicated to doing their best in TFT, and that's it. And they make an income from that. And I mean, I wish I was in their spot. Is that good? Maybe. I mean, they're obviously putting in more effort, so shouldn't they be rewarded with stronger performance? I think that's a pretty reasonable take. Um, so yeah, I think after thinking about it for a while, it leaves kind of a bad taste in my mouth, but I do think it is reasonable to reward players who put in a ton of time to learning all these different things. People talk about like how can you actually know how strong each augment is? There are say 200, 250 augments in the game, I think. And Mortdog said it would take around 2 to 3 games to estimate how strong an augment is. I think that's a bit on the low end, but even say that's say it's 2 games, 250 augments. That's 500 games to know how strong all these augments are, and then imagine those augments get changed. That means you're playing what, like 700 games a set to actually understand them all. So you can't actually completely understand what every augment, the exact power level of every single augment. That's just impossible with these changes. Unless you are, I'll talk to it later. Is that necessarily a bad thing? I thought initially yes, but after thinking about it some more, not necessarily. If you don't know how strong a certain augment is because you haven't taken it before, um, and you just don't want to play for that augment, I don't think that's the end of the world. So I don't completely hate that. Um, so far, I'm sort of on board with the idea. I really came in disliking it, but as I've thought more about it, I've become a little bit more into the idea. Okay, let's go down to another point. So one of the things that Mortar talked about, and one of the things that's definitely true here, is that this encourages people to talk to each other more and study with each other to gather experience. So if I'm going to, if I really want to gather as much information as possible, what I should do is I should create a study group, and I've done this with a few friends of mine who are, challenger high elo, and then talk to them very, very frequently, and say like, okay, what do you guys think is strong? What's your meta read? What do you think about this augment? What's the tech? What's the tech? And then share tech. Um, there's a good side and a bad side to this. The good side is it encourages interaction between players. It encourages community. I don't know why I'm air quoting so much. I'm sorry. It encourages community, encourages just like people hanging out and talking about TFT, which is really, really positive. Those are some of the most fun conversations I've had in my life. Is just chilling out with like Garchomp Pro, Joe Bookmark, Yogurt, who is now a fucking Street Fighter player, huh? Other people, and just like, or was a okay, I can't remember one, but yeah, just chilling out with people, talking to them, and like talking TFT, and like, oh, I think this comp's really strong. Oh, I think this is the tech. Oh, I think this. Oh no, that sounds like garbage. Oh, I mean, in the past, I would be the one to be like, well, the stats say this, but now I'm not going to be able to even do that anymore. I think that's really, really cool. The downside is that if you don't have a study group, this kind of leaves you out on the outside. And this was already the case, right? If you're a like new challenger player trying to break in and you have no study group whatsoever, I was like this before I started talking to a few players, and I do not have like a super dedicated study group. I talk to those players rarely, but it's not like every day I'm hitting up Garchomp Pro saying, okay, what's the hot tech? Um, Still, like, I guess what I'm saying is that like when you are that player on the outside, it now feels even worse, right? You need to have people to talk to, or else you only have your own experience. You don't have augment win rates and just stats in general to rely on. So that feels bad for the people on the outside. I think I think that's just absolutely true, and that's something you have to acknowledge. So there's an upside and a downside to that. Um, and that sort of brings me into my next point is that for myself, selfishly, this might actually be good because this encourages people to really, really like flock toward guide type content, like videos, that kind of stuff to learn how to play the game and to learn what's strong. Because if I put out a video saying this augment is broken, you don't objectively know anymore like what's a broken augment. And so like if I show you a really, really cool way to play I forget what that new augment is. It's the one where you stuck on level 7 but you get 100 gold. If I show you guys a really cool way to play around that augment, um, you don't have that. You don't have stats to know if it's strong or not. You don't have stats to dive in and see what like the actual strengths of that augment are. So it's good for me, and it's good for anyone who likes creating guides. And it means that there's going to be more and more people flocking to sort of like guides, like Robin Song's website, other people who like make guides on Reddit or other websites. It actually makes more and more people want to go towards those websites and those types of videos because they're not going to have the stats websites to figure this stuff out. So call that a positive for me, more like a neutral overall for the world. I don't know. Maybe you can call it a negative for the world because you have to watch a 30-minute Sub-Zero Arc video instead of just hopping on tactics.tools. Um, the last thing I want to take about this on this sort of same topic is that there is a skill understanding how strong an augment is, reading the augment and knowing how strong it is, just intuiting, saying, okay, this augment gives me 500 HP. I read like that Zon augment that gives your Zon units 500 HP and then the units around them 100 HP. And I played with it and I was like, wow, this kind of feels like garbage. Because like, why do I care about 500 HP on my Zeri? And then, like I had an Urgot where the 500 HP is good, but not to get so far into that. And hey, maybe that augment's actually broken and I'll never know and I made a wrong judgment, but that is actually a skill, and that's not really a skill that exists so much in TFT right now. Evaluating how strong, say, Ascension is compared to like a cybernetic augment, it's really difficult to actually do that, to just evaluate the strength of those augments, just sort of like independent of everything else. But I think really, really good players know how to do that. They know how to look at an augment, read it, understand what it does, and say, how strong actually is this? I do think at the end of the day, that probably is a skill that should be rewarded in TFT, right? If there is an augment that just said like, gain, if you have a bunch of mages in, or what are they called this set? Whatever the mage thing is this set, sorcerers, gain like 1 AP. and like a random player is like, oh man, it says sorcerers on it, I gotta take that. And then a more discerning player would be like, wait, they had 1 AP, that's not very good. That is a reasonable skill to test for in TFT. So I don't actually hate the idea um of testing for that skill. This is something that I just thought of recently, but that's actually like really good, right? That people who know how to evaluate augments and understand what is strong and what is weak based off just reading them is really good. Um, I will make another point. This is like my biggest negative towards this change, outside of some other stuff that maybe I'll get into. Um, Bugs exist in TFT. Gnar last set was bugged for a very long time to double crit when he cast. If you built like IE on him, like his ability would double crit, and they patched that out. But if you looked in the stats, you could tell that IE was actually quite strong on Gnar. Um, so this is the only thing that sort of goes against my previous take, is that reading what an augment does, and like say they like this change and they go even further and say we're just nuking all stats, which could happen in the future. We'll see. Um, say that's something that happens. We will have no way of actually telling what's strong, because some things are weaker, like are just objectively weaker than they are as written because of bugs. Samira, building IE on Samira, which was bugged for the longest time. Um, if you are a discerning player and you understand how to evaluate the strength of something, and you evaluate the strength of Io and Samir, it's very good, and then you build it on her and you just go 8th, that's kind of tough. You sort of then have to make the jump and say, something's wrong here, maybe there's a bug here, but that's really, really messy. So that is my biggest, I would say, just objective bad thing about this, is that without us having stats, we will not be able to tell what's bugged. Now, hopefully, I don't think this is going to happen because it hasn't happened in the past, but hopefully, we know Riot will still have stats on their end. So it's possible that Riot could say, "Oh, IE is performing really badly on Samira. Let me let Mortdog tweet out that IE is bugged on Samira." That would be amazing. That hasn't happened so far. It's just been sort of left to the players. So I don't have high hopes for that, but I would hope that would happen if we have stats taken away, because this kneecaps our ability to just see what things are bugged. Like, say there's an augment right now, like the silver augment. I've heard that the silver augment, where if your guys are in the same row, they get resists, is just completely bugged and doesn't work. That could be wrong, and maybe, I don't know, I was half listening to a Frodan stream, so maybe that was something different. But say that augment is completely bugged. You look at that augment's win rate, you see it averages like a 5, because the augment just does literally nothing. You can immediately tell this augment sucks, and there's probably something wrong with it. If you just read the augment, though, it sounds fine. You take it, and then you're just playing down an augment the entire game. That sucks. That really, 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 really sucks. So I would say that's my biggest problem with this, is that it removes our ability to actually tell what things are bugged. And I mean, it's TFT, bugs are going to exist, but maybe you can make the argument that in a perfect world, there will be no bugs, and then we won't have to worry about that. Uh, One of the things that is probably the best about this is that it kills the play pattern of, all right, it's 2-1. Let me you okay, okay. Right, Tiny Titans, Cybernetic Uplink, Brawler +1. Oh, Brawler +1's the best here. Okay, okay, good. Like, um, it removes that from the game, where you just look up your augments and take the highest win rate augment. Now, I don't really think this is a legitimate concern, because only bad players were doing this. So is that really an issue? I'm not sure. It's kind of nice that people can't just get by being really lazy before, and I guess it rewards players more who understand the strength of all the augments. So I guess that's good for the more discerning players, but I don't really think that was much of an issue in the first place. So I won't say that that was, yeah, I can't really call that a benefit, but I mean, it's definitely not a negative. Yeah, I don't really know what to say about that. Um, yeah, so those are my big takeaways. I think at the end of the day, something big that I thought about as well is at the end of Mortdog's stream. He said something like, "Oh, well, if this ends up being a bad change, it'll be super easy to just turn the API back on and all good. Like, stats are completely back." Um, so that gives me faith. As someone who has been playing TFT for a little while now, not as long as a lot of people, but has been an active member of the community for a while. I've had a lot of cases where similar things to this have happened, where Riot has made a big change, and I've said, "Wow, that sounds awful." You know, like it was way back. What was this? The set with Astral in it when they ended up like not nerfing Rise or something like that. Astral mages. And I thought, wow, that's insane that they're not nerfing Rise. Or maybe it was that they were nerfing Rise really hard. I don't remember. It ended up that they landed the balance perfectly and the comp was very reasonable. Another thing I will absolutely own up to, augment rerolls. For augment rerolls, I thought this is going to ruin the game. They're going to be, oh, okay, I wasn't that far, but I did have a negative outlook on it in general. Um, and it turned out to be very, very, very good for the set. So I do think Riot, at the end of the day, usually does what's best. Almost always does what's best for at least the TFT community. I don't want to talk to League or anything else like that. Um, so I do have full faith that if this is a bad change and if it makes games worse and less enjoyable, Riot will completely revert it and we'll be all good with stats again. So I think that's the biggest thing. And so coming from that perspective, I'm sort of saying, okay, F it. Like, why not? Let's try it out and see how it goes. Because if it's only upside trying it, right? If we try it for a patch or two, and it's really, really annoying to have no augment info and people are in the dark and it feels horrible, then okay, all good. Then we swap it back. Or if we try it and we say, whoa, there's like so much more innovation. There's like people can get really, really cool edges by learning about niche strategies that are strong with certain augments, then maybe we continue down that road and maybe someday all stats are gone. So that's my biggest plus for this is that we can turn it back if it turns out to be really, really bad, and if it's really good, we keep it. So I think after thinking about it so much, I've actually come to the conclusion that I would like this. I do think in general it leaves a bad taste in my mouth. Um, Lots of Magic the Gathering has done this, like, artificially limiting player knowledge doesn't feel good. I would prefer to just have as much knowledge as possible and be able to just go as deep as possible as I can in the stats and understand the meta and everything. Um, but I do acknowledge that this could be better for the game. I do acknowledge that there could be upsides to this, and if you come from the perspective that Riot will revert this if it's a real problem, then I think there's really not a big downside. As long as you like, maybe you think Riot's prideful and they won't revert this, which I really hope they're not. If this ends up being a big problem. Um, so yeah, those are just some jumbled thoughts about this stuff. I'm really interested to hear what you guys think because it's a really controversial, really wild topic. So let me know in the comments down below what you guys think. And yeah, today, because this is going to be going out tomorrow from when I record this, I'm playing in Emily Wang's PvE tournament, the finals, well, the final day. Hopefully I make the finals. So if you're watching this and it's middle of day North American time, go check out my Twitch, which is also down below. But yeah, thanks everyone for watching, and I'll catch you guys in the next video. Bye.